Hello. Everybody awake? Okay, I'm going to ask you that same question in about an hour. Okay. So I want to start off and I thought, I've been sitting here too long. I'm going to first say, who am I? You know I'm a member here. So what I mean is, who am I to be talking about this subject? And forgive me for not making eye contact all the time, because I've got some notes that I want to follow to make sure I say it right in a lot of cases. But anyway, first thing I want to get across is that I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy, a nerd that is interested in the wood technology and what makes it grow and tick, so to speak. And I don't see him here tonight, but I was talking to Scotty at the Christmas dinner, and he asked me a question, and I'm not sure I gave him a very good answer. He asked me what got me into identifying wood. It kind of caught me off guard, so I didn't really answer his question, I don't think. So tonight, what I want to do is give you a general understanding of how to identify wood. We're not going to undo anything you already know. We're just going to hopefully enhance it. So, and along the way, I'm going to share my experience in wood collecting, and a little bit about my collection, and about some of the people, about the International Wood Collectors Society organization. That's a great wonderful bunch of people. It's just like, they're Woodturners, woodworkers. So what do you expect? It's like home folks here. And I want to answer Scotty's question. So, how did I learn how to identify wood? Well, I'm still learning. And as I was preparing this presentation, I realized how much more there is to learn. I learned a lot just getting ready already. Plus, you know, I'm a country boy that just wants to know how things work. So I kind of started digging into it, and partly because as a systems programmer on the mainframe for about 30 years, looking at details kind of got ingrained in my habits. So, because, you know, I had to look at every bit and byte, you know, that people come to me with to help solve the problems, because every bit or byte makes a difference on the computer, what makes it work. So, I already said that. So, first thing I guess that got me started was I started reading this book by R. Bruce Hoadley, Understanding Wood. It's by Taunton Press, which is the publishers of Fine Woodworking Magazine and a lot of other fine woodworking books. It's a very technical type book. It's not totally scientific. I mean, it's not written in scientific terms, although it is borders on scientific. So, and it looks at wood from a lot of different angles. Well, then I got his second book, Identifying Wood. That's more what I was interested in. And it's also by Taunton Press. Well, here's the first book that I was talking about. And I'll put some of these out here to, for you to look at during the break. And I've got a bunch of others. We'll get into these later. But along the line, I've come across an easier book to read. It has almost the identical information, but it's written in more of layman's terms. You know, it's easier to read, and it's a little less reading, but you learn the same thing. And basically what it is just the wood-database.com in paper. So everything, if you've looked at that website, everything on that website is pretty much in this book, except I did discover, since we had it at Lee Summit, wood toxicity type. He does have a section on wood toxicity. And it also, the book also includes macro photographs, you know, on the woods, what we're going to get into here later tonight. And we'll find out why that's important. So this is one of the first books that I go to. Then, along my way in my journey, I ran across this great bunch of people, the International Wood Collectors Society, and I discovered that they, actually I think it was Danny Marino that kind of turned me on to it. He belonged to them. And I discovered that they put out a journal bi-monthly, and it has in it a different wood type every issue, and it gives all the details about it. So, being hooked on wood, I joined them. The journal, World of Wood, like I said, has features a wood data sheet. It has club news, activities, you know, in the club, and it has a couple articles usually about somebody's experience collecting wood, and you know, the location, the culture behind it. You know, a lot of good information, and just, you know, wood technology in general. We'll get into it a little deeper later. I joined IWCS in the mid-90s. I can't remember exactly when, but I thought I would just kind of tell you a little bit about wood collecting, and I want to take a little side road here and tell you a little tale of wood collecting in its infancy. I thought I would, well, I landed in the land of exotic woods. In 2000, my wife and I went to South Africa to visit our daughter, who was living there as a missionary. And like I said, I thought I was in the land of exotic woods, so I better come home with a bunch of exotic woods, right? So I had been told about this little lumber yard down on the Cape of South Africa that somebody had gone to. So we took a 6-day week trip down to the Cape of South Africa on the Indian Ocean. And one day my wife and daughter were shopping, doing something, and I thought, well, I'll just take advantage of this, and started driving around looking for this little lumber yard. And I found it. This is a little back in the forest somewhere, off the road. If you notice, the siding on this shop, it's a workshop, is just the slabs cut off at the sawmill, where you just first cuts on the log. What do you call that, Danny? What are those slabs called? Just slabs? Well, if you notice also, can you see in here, that's the machinery. That's probably a table saw or something, a woodworking tool. And they're all chained to the floor, chained to the concrete floor. So, I'm going to give you an idea of what happens around there. And this is just kind of a composite picture I threw together to give you more of a panoramic view of the whole place. This little building served as an office. I think they might have had a shop in the back somewhere. But I went in and spoke to the owner, manager, whatever he was. He wasn't totally friendly, but he didn't run me off. But he let me dig through his scrap pile. And one of his workers went with me and helped, and thank goodness, kind of helped me identify some of the woods that I drug out. He pulled out this piece of wood and said, "Here, this is stinkwood." Okay, I don't know what that is, but the name kind of warns me. So, stinkwood right now is, well, it's illegal to import it. It's illegal to cut a tree down. It's on the CITES list. You know what that is? That's a list of all species of things that are endangered. So it is an endangered species. This is the stinkwood sample that I have. Of course, it was a little bit bigger, and then I got a sample off of it. But this is probably my most valuable piece of wood in my collection because of what I said. It's extinction threatened. You can't get it. So that's it. Maybe a better view. And yes, no, it didn't stink when I cut it. Most of the aroma from wood is from when it's first cut, when you're machining it. If you're smelling a piece of wood for identification purposes, you're probably going to identify it as some kind of finish. You're smelling finish. So, but if you're cutting it and it's fresh, that's a good thing. So that's my little piece of contraband. And then in my daughter's church, there was a guy that made knives. He had a business making beautiful knives. And he has a garage full of exotic wood to make the scales out of. We went to his house and toured his shop. He got to digging around in his wood pile, and he pulled out this little log about so long, about 3 inches in diameter. Said, "I don't know if this will work in your travel plans or not." And he gave it to me. African blackwood. I don't know if you've priced African blackwood out here now lately, but that piece of wood is probably right now would be a couple $100, maybe more. So we got that hidden. And then he dug around some more and pulled out another piece of wood. It was pink ivory. a 3x3 by about 18 inches long, and that about gave me heart failure, because I knew in the States at that time, pink ivory was being sold by the ounce, you know, like gold. Anyway, we'll get back to International Wood Collectors Society. In 2005, I just retired, and I went to my first international meeting, which was at the USDA Forest Products Laboratory in Madison, Wisconsin. And after going to that meeting, my entire world of collecting opened up. I started to understand what it was about, how to kind of go about it, and all that kind of stuff. So, a couple of brief points about wood collecting. The samples are a 3x3x6 piece of wood. I said 3x3. 3x6 by half. And that's what I have up here. I've got them labeled. And these 3 trays are here in front. Those are just Missouri woods. Not all Missouri woods. Mike helped me figure out I had some missing and some duplicates. But these are Missouri woods. And that box on that table, the green box on the table, is just one drawer out of my stack of 12 of different woods that I've got. And being craftsmen, these guys, men and women, usually make something out of the wood, you know, as part of their collection. A real popular one are eggs, because eggs are, you know, when you turn an egg, you have all angles, you know, to a piece of wood. So, and they're easy to turn. Or a lot of people make bowls, platters. Some people make books, you know, that they stand on a shelf like a library. It looks like a library book. One guy in Canada carves maple leaves. And there's one guy that turns lighthouses. This is a sample, and you feel free to look at them. You can pick them up. If the bottom falls off, put it back on. But my collection, I've tried to, when I research the wood, find out where it comes from and grows. I try to make a lighthouse resembling one in that region. So that's why there's a different shapes. But there is a guy in England that makes these little wheelbarrows. He makes all kinds of miniature stuff. There's another wheelbarrow here. He's got some furniture, machinery, miniature. And this is a picture of his collection of wheelbarrows. He was with us in Australia, and he was just scrounging wood. He was an inspiration. I mean, he was getting wood that I didn't have the courage to ask for. But anyway, International Wood Collectors Society started in 1947. Right now they've got about 500 members in all countries all over the world. And there's a large contingency, a lot of people, members in Australia, Canada, England, and Europe. There's even some in South Africa. But, and meetings are held in a lot of different places. It's been held in Australia many times. It was this last year. And my wife and I went there in 2006 to a meeting in Queensland. And one of the things that after the meeting, we went on a 16-day guided tour to the Queensland outback, and with a busload of woodies, you know, and the main leader brought his chainsaw along, and we did our own wood collecting on the side of the road and whatnot. We filled the bus up with wood samples we had to sort out and share. That was fun. And one of the things that they invited us to do as an attendee, they made what they call a quilt, make a 12 by 12 plaque to go in this quilt, something about your area and the wood from your area. So this is what we ended up with. This quilt then was displayed and presented to the mayor of the Shire in Toowoomba, Australia. And it is now in their civic center, community center, I should say, I guess. So you might say I've got a piece of art in a foreign country. But mine is right to the right of center, on the third row, second one from the right. And this is a picture of it. It's the shape of Missouri, just an intarsia, shape of Missouri with different woods. And while I was making it, I made a scale model, and it's over there on that table. And the woods on it are identified on the back side. Because I knew mine, the real one, wasn't coming home. So the World of Wood, the journal for the IWCS, I've got about 15 copies here. If you're interested, feel free to take one. But if you don't get one and still would like to have one, send me an email, and I can email you one. I spoke to the publications chairman, and he gave me permission to give it out. They do post them on their website. You know, as a member, you can read it on the web. But if you want one, I can send you an electronic copy. I said that. Okay, the membership is $50 a year, and you can join online at woodcollectors.org, and just click on join, You fill out a little form, and in the form there's a place they're recruited by. You can put my name if you'd like. I won't get any discount, but credit. And if you have any questions about IWCS or are interested, you know, we can talk offline later. But we need to get into wood identification. Okay, I want to start with a topic that causes a lot of confusion, and that is wood names. Names, you know, we speak of them as common names. There's a lot of information, a lot of misinformation in the name. And, you know, the common names are also given, you know, colloquially. So, you know, it means something to the local people, but not to us or other people. So it's broken down into scientific names versus common names. Okay, common names, like I said, I think I said it, many names are just given simply for sales. You know, they name it because it looks like something somebody may be familiar with, or it sounds exotic, or whatever. And not all the names are related to the actual genus that the tree is in, you know, as it's growing. So there's a lot of confusion. Scientific names, there's only one name for a wood or tree. So there's no confusion. It's what it is. For instance, if you say Hoogland's nigra, you know that you're talking about black walnut. It's not Claro walnut, it's not English walnut, it's not Peruvian walnut, it's black walnut. There's about 21 species. Why is it important? Because when we get into the details, every tree species is unique. You know, their cell structure is like fingerprints for a person. And their DNA and other characteristics are different. And we're going to find out that some are not even related. I found this book, Book of Names. This book is written in, or printed in at least, 4 different languages. So I think it was originally written by a German doctor. It has 30,000 wood names in it. An example of confusion, just take oak for example. There are 157 oak names. 64 of those are not in the genus Quercus, which is oak. And there's 57 ironwoods, and not all of them are, you know, same. Just about every country has an ironwood, or a redwood, or a yellow wood. But, you know, so just saying an ironwood, you don't know what you got. Another prime example is silky oak. You know, you hear about silky oak, and there are 26 silky oaks, and only 11 of them are oak, the Quercus genus. And it's really bad in Australia. They have several silky oaks in Australia, and some of them are Quercus, but some of them are eucalyptus. So they're not even an oak. Okay, how are we going to look at the wood to identify it? Okay, like I said earlier, first of all, we're not going to throw away, your current knowledge or method of looking at the wood. You're still going to look at it like a woodworker. You're going to weigh it, feel its weight. Um, Sometimes you can sniff it, but I don't really recommend that. Okay, you look at the color and the grain. But I want to caution you, don't confuse grain pattern for figure as an identification feature. Another example is ambrosia maple. That's a maple, but it's not a species. It's just a maple tree that got infested by a bug. So, what we're going to do is look at the end grain. Okay, we're going to study the cell structure, the pores, and the patterns they make, and other details. So to do that, we're going to be using some different kinds of tools. You've all seen me pull out my little loop and look at it. Well, you can get some inexpensive but good loops. I just bought these a couple weeks ago. I think they're like $6 or $7. But you can spend, 20 or however much you want on a loop. I like these for carrying in my pocket, but when I'm at home, I kind of like using this one. It has two different magnifications. I guess I ought to say something about magnification. A 10x magnification is sufficient because most macro photographs are taken at 10x. But a 20x, I use a 20x, you get a clearer picture. It's the same thing, but you can see it clearer. And this one, like I said, I use at home, has a light on it. So you can, to see, you need the light. When you get close to your work, that shadows of the lens, gets in its own way. So the light makes it a lot clearer. When I first started out, I knew I needed to look at the magnification, so I quickly bought some handheld microscopes. Well, I found out they're awkward and it's an overkill. It's too much magnification. So, unless you're really looking at some detail, I don't use them very much anymore, except that I do have a digital microscope on the computer, and I'll show you some pictures later that I've taken. Okay, we're still going to use saws, planes, clamps, something to split the wood, or very sharp knives. And this is where I start getting nervous. After having surgery on my thumb a couple times and a few times getting stitches, I've started being a little more careful. I use a carver's glove, and to me, a razor blade is difficult to use. It's sharp, and you can use it, be careful. But I started using a scalpel. They're much more sharp. And you can get an inexpensive one. I got this off of Amazon. I don't remember what, but it's a disposable. That's lasted a couple of weeks here anyway. So we need to prepare a sample, prepare something to look at. I just want to stress again, just to be very careful. One operation was due to holding a piece in a clamp insecurely. it gave way. So just be careful. And having the wood cut in quarter sawn orientation, it's nice. Makes everything uniform, but it's not totally necessary. And you can't always, if you've got a board, you've got a board. So first thing we need to do is get a good clean cut. The picture on the left is a table saw cut. There's a saw cut anyway. And if you notice, you can see that these are early wood cells. But in the late wood, it's just fuzzy. You can't really tell if this is a pore or if it's fuzz. So this middle picture is a picture after cleaning up with a sharp pocket knife. So you can see the pores a little bit better, and you can see some late wood pores showing up. And then the right hand picture is after cleaning up with a razor blade. Everything is nice and clear. We've got the cells open, clear, and the late wood are visible. And then to use a hand lens, you hold the lens up close to your eye, and then bring the wood to the lens until it comes in focus. And then you can hold your focus just by kind of just clamping all your cheek and the lens and everything all together, and you can steady it. Okay, let's talk about tree types, types of wood. You've heard of hardwood, softwood. Well, that's a misnomer, but it's how the world is. First type, conifers, we call it evergreens. They have leaves, needles and scales, and they usually grow on one stem, one stalk. With the branches coming out from the one stem. And the overall shape of the tree is triangular or conical most of the time. And they keep their leaves in the wintertime. In deciduous trees, the leaves are flat, and the tree shape is more rounded, and it has multiple stems or multiple branches that make the shape, and then they lose their leaves in the winter. So conifers are what's called softwoods, deciduous are what's called hardwoods. But it has nothing to do with the density or the hardness of the wood. It's just like balsa. Balsa is a hardwood, but it's the softest wood there is. I've got a chart over here that ranks the hardness of the wood kind of by region. And you can look I think balsa is the softest wood, and the number one hardest wood is waddy wood from Australia. I forget what the number is, but the hardest wood in, well, now I forgot. I was going to say what it was in the U.S. I'll have to look at the chart. That bugs me. Okay, this is a kind of a recap. You know how basically how a tree grows. From the middle is the pith that gets it going. It could be several years just making that pith, and then this dark part, heartwood, that is. It's not growing anymore. It's living, but it's not really growing anymore. And the sapwood, the next layer out, is growing, and kind of like a skin, but the cambium layer just beneath the bark is where all the living, that's the brains of the tree. That's where it's amazing. I've got some handouts, and the first I ran across it when I was getting ready for this. I ran across an article that I forgot I had, and I reread it, and it was exciting to me to realize or to find out that the cambium, you know, the cells divide. Well, one cell will become sapwood, and remember, there's different kinds of pores. You know, there's large early wood pores, and there's small late wood pores. So that's, to me, that's where the tree's brain has to know which way is what's it making. And it divides the other way and it becomes bark. And it all, you know, so a cell divides, part of it stays cambium, part of it becomes bark, or part of it becomes wood, you know. Well, it's fascinating. But anyway, I was telling about these handouts. I've got 4 or 5, and they're on our website. And I've got a link, another document that has links to them. So, and I'll give you the more information here a little bit later. But you can also go to this URL, and that'll open up the link document that points to all the other documents. There's one on how wood is made. It's written by IWCS member number 14. When you join IWCS, you get a number, a sequential number. My number is 8265, so there's been a few people ahead of me, but number 14 was one of the first. And it's written, it's really fun to read. And there's another one about the structure of wood by Dr. Miller and Alex Wiedenoff. I met them. They were scientists at Forest Products Laboratory. Dr. Regis Miller had just retired when we were there. And I'm amazed at the knowledge these guys have of wood. I mean, and this young guy that's taken over, Alex Wiedenoff, he answers some questions that blew your mind. And then there's a couple others, one written by from Michigan State University, and another one from the University of Tennessee. On both of those, they say about the same thing, but if you want to read what I'm trying to get across tonight, they can have it in 2 or 3 pages here. So, All right. We're looking at the end grain of a piece of wood. The features here, this letter A, that's marking out a ray. Okay, this is a cell that goes perpendicular, to the tree. That's kind of the pipeline for the nutrients and water and stuff to get into the center of the tree, and vice versa. B is the large pores, and that's the early wood, and they're generated because of fast growth. Then C is the late wood pores. They're smaller because they're growing in more difficult time of year. And then in between these dark parts here, that's wood fibers. And the distance from early wood to early wood is a lot of times called annual rings. But it's also could just be called growth rings. Oh, I'll see that here a little bit later. You see here's a redwood, a conifer. You can see the annual rings. Softwood has a different cell structure than a hardwood. The early wood cells are larger and wider, but the late wood are small and more condensed. That's why they're dark. And then here's the hardwood, red elm, same with early wood, late wood. Annual ring. But like a tropical wood where they really don't have a growing season, it's growing all the time, they don't really have annual rings. So we have this type of cell structure, which is called the diffuse porous. So what you see here may be several years, could be several years instead of with 1 year. Okay, other ring porosity names. The type, well, I shouldn't say most, but this is called ring porous. You can actually see the different rings: early wood, late wood, early wood, late wood. In the center picture, similar ring porous. You can see the early wood pores, they're stretched out, and then there's some late wood pores, a smaller ring or area of small pores. And then diffuse porous, where they're pretty well consistent all the way through. Okay. Has it been an hour? Should I ask him a question yet or not? No. Okay. Eastern white pine. It's kind of what the softwoods or the conifers have a different method of growing. They have different cell structures. Like the softwoods have resin ducts instead of the pores, the early wood, late wood pores. Softwoods or conifers are harder to identify. I and a lot of most other people find them to be more difficult, and I don't, I haven't studied them enough, so I won't really be going into it. They are very difficult to distinguish because they all look alike when you just look at it. So, it's frustrating. Okay. Little deeper level here is kind of a repeat, but I don't know if you can see where these labels are going. These fibers are pointing to the dark parts of the wood fibers. Rays, these are the straight lines going perpendicular to the tree. And then these like fuzzy things around this pore is called parenchyma. And the holes are cells. Okay? Here's where I get my first test question. The parenchyma is arranged in a lot of different pictures, a lot of different ways, and they all have names. We're not going to get into it. But just know that that's what makes the picture. All these, yes sir.
Is the
parenchyma
a protection for the pore, the hole?
Well, you know, that's probably a more scientific question I can answer. It's more or less a support system, you know, of the cell itself. They, I've read how they interact, but it kind of boggles my mind. I've got a textbook that one of our members recommended to me. It's out of print, but it's a McGraw-Hill book, and I don't think I can read 3 sentences, you know, out of the whole book without getting totally confused. You know, it just brings up something else you got to look up. So I've got it. Maybe someday. Other questions? Okay, let's do some comparison here. This is northern red oak. You know, we've seen this a lot. It's been one of the main examples. We've got, well, first of all, notice that this ray is wide and this one is smaller, so it has varying sizes of rays. And that's important. It has the open pored early wood, and then smaller late wood. Look like, to me, they look like bubbles under the water rising up. And white oak on the right hand side, same thing, except they're different sizes. The late wood pores are more abundant. They're wider chains, whatever they're called. But also notice that in the white oak, see, these pores are clogged with what looks like, you know, cellophane or glass or crystal of some kind. That's what makes white oak watertight. That's why it can hold water, because of those tyloses. Other woods have tyloses, but maybe not so abundantly. Okay. Another example, Acer negundo and Acer rubrum. Acer negundo is box elder. So you notice it is a maple. the same genus. So box elder is a maple. And they're very similar. That's why you have to really get down to details. See, the rays are very small. You just almost have to have a microscope to see them. This is at 10x, so if this was taken at a higher rating, you could see them more. But the maple is wider rays. Okay. We got Ulmus americana, American elm. This is kind of a fun one for me. I don't know why, but it's just busy. The late wood pores, and then the early wood pores. And you notice all the wavy patterns. That is very typical of elm, and it's not the only wood that has that pattern. Other woods do have it, and this arrangement is called ulmiform, which comes from the elm name, ulmus. But this is very distinctive. Here, hackberry, so you can see it does have some ulmiform parenchyma, but not as repeated, or as thick. So, where do we get these pictures? Well, you can see that this process is just comparing pictures. A picture of the wood, picture in the wood, and a picture, to compare it to. So, where do we get them? From books. And like I said, one of the first ones that I go to is this one, Wood Database. And this little green one, this is the first one I ever got. And I got it at the IWCS International Meeting in Madison, Wisconsin. Because it happened to be the year they released this book. So as members, we got a discount on it. It's actually written by two guys from the International Wood Collectors Society. One guy was the president when we went to Australia. For Australian woods, these are new books. They're written by a guy who was our chauffeur to and from the airport when we went to Australia. And he took us by his house and let me dig through his scrap pile looking for some purple gidgee. Didn't find any. And the Southern African Wood book is a very good book. And I've got these laid out, and feel free to look through them. I'll set these out to you. And speaking of books, I think I missed it, but I've got some books here put out by the Missouri Conservation Commission. These are on Missouri woods. There's some very nice pictures in here of the woods. And in their end grain picture, a lot of them you can see these patterns and stuff, to use for identification. So there should be enough for everybody here. I'll set it up. Okay. If you don't have the books, there's several websites on the internet, and I've got a list. That's actually one of the things that's in that document that this points to. And there's professional help. We all need professional help. Huh? Anybody?
Yeah.
All right. Well, so, now you know what you're doing. We're ready to start looking at some wood and tell them what it is. So what's this? Anybody got a guess? Any idea? Notice the rays.
You've seen it.
Well, they're different sizes.
Elm?
And we've got about 2-3 rows of early wood cells and a long string of late wood cells, got a narrow change. Does that look like something we looked at a while ago?
Yes.
What was it?
Elm.
Hey, you're pretty good.
What was it? Oak?
Red oak.
Red oak.
It's pin oak.
Oh, pin oak.
But basically, in identification, the only reason I can put this up here is because where I got it said what it was. But you can't always identify down to the actual species. You can get the genus, but the species is kind of questionable. So red oak, white oak is a lot of times your best guess. All right, here's a couple. Black ash, white ash. You notice the black ash, I don't know if you can see it very well or not. You can see it better than I can. The annual rings are close together. So what's that mean? That means it's slow growing. And it's going to have a finer green pattern. Okay? The white ash has a wide annual ring. So it's going to have, it's fast growing. So
Softer wood.
a little softer. Was that a question or comment?
I say that white ash should be a softer wood.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. What difference in the cell structure between a hardwood and a softwood? What
Well-
differentiates a hardwood from a softwood?
Now, okay.
That may
Do you
have
mean,
answered
no,
part of it.
do you mean soft as in nomenclature,
Density.
softwood, hardwood, or density? You know, the actual softness or hardness of the wood.
Well,
Um,
your African blackwood, it's a hardwood.
Right.
It's a really.
Well, okay, you're talking about density.
Okay.
All right. Now then, repeat the question. How? What's your question?
What differentiates in the cell structure, how it differentiates between a hardwood and a softwood?
No, I don't think I can answer that. I mean, I don't think, I say no, I don't think the cell structure is necessarily related to density. Now, take a look on this chart. This is an interesting chart. This, the wood arranged by the Jenka hardness. You have to study that a little bit, but I think it's very interesting. It might give you an idea if you're familiar with some of those woods. Okay, black locust, honey locust. You notice anything here? Take a look at their names.
Yeah, the video
Genus.
was.
Yeah, they have different genus.
Yeah.
So the black locust is not a locust. It's called black locust, but technically it's not in the locust genus. Honey locust does have a cousin. It's let's see. It's called water locust, which grows in the southeast U.S. And a lot of times it's confused with Kentucky coffee tree. Here's a wood everybody probably has in their house somewhere. Rubber wood.
On the
That-
floor, so it'll bounce.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it'll bend, you know, or bounce. You know, it'll bounce a little bit. But it's often marketed under an ambiguous name, plantation hardwood. It's used in a lot of inexpensive imported furniture. I've used it. I think I've got a lighthouse up here, and I've made several things. I've repurposed it out of old chairs and table legs and tabletops and stuff. It'll turn, and some of it turns good, some of it turns bad, because since it is repurposed, you know, some of the boards don't always go, the grain goes the same direction. So part of it will fuzz up, and the other part will chip out. Where my water went. Okay. There is a picture that I took with my digital microscope of Morris alba, white mulberry, out of my neighbor's yard. He cut the tree, not me. But you can see in it, this is, I don't know what real magnification is, but it's greater than 10x. But you can see the tylosis in the cells of the early wood. Here's a picture also that I took of sassafras. It also has some tylosis. You notice the rays are narrower. There's only one pore, one cell between them. And there's this stinkwood. So what now? No books? You know, I don't expect people to run out and buy a bunch of these books. But you can use the web. There's several websites. And I've got, this is that link to that document that points you to the other handouts. I'll put this, see if Rick won't put it in the newsletter, right? And also in the video description, if I'm able to make a video of this, we'll put it on YouTube. It'll be in the video description. And actually, let me try something here. I think, yeah. Here's what that document looks like. Here are the articles, how wood is made. That's the one written by IWCS member 14. This is written by the Dr. Miller and Alex Wiedenoff. And these are the ones from Tennessee State University and Michigan University. And then we've got some websites for wood identification. Oh, why? Okay, wood-database.com. It's a good one. But there's also this Hobbit House Inc. It's a good one. It has a lot of pictures. It's it's not fancy. It doesn't have a lot of verbiage, just enough. It's a little bit of a challenge to navigate, but a lot of good pictures. And if you need some wood identified, the USDA Forest Products Lab will identify 3 samples a year for a U.S. citizen. Now remember, if you send them something, you're not going to get your sample back because it gets destroyed in the process. And you go to this website, and it of course explains all what you have to do. You first fill out a form. They've changed it. I've used them a couple times, and the process has changed a little bit. You used to fill out the form and email it to them, but now you just fill out the form, print it, and put it in your package, and ship it all together. It'll take you a couple months. Kind of depends on their workload, but it is part of their job. So, like I said, 3 samples a year per household. And this guy will do it. He's a professional, but it's a fee paid. For $50, he'll identify a piece of wood. He used to work at Forest Products Lab, so he knows what he's doing. I already make a suggestion that you make your own sample reference library. Just use up some of the scrap pieces you've got, and you already know what they are. You can make them sample size or anything you want, so as long as you can read the end grain, and or grain pattern, These sample sizes are a great way to start. Some online wood sellers provide samples, and I've gotten some, and I don't remember who they were. So, and I'm not, so I don't know if they're still in business. It's been a long time. Okay, might make yourself an egg or a bowl or platter or lighthouse. Okay. And then as you go along, keep it up. Any questions? Lots of books, lots of books. I've got these are kind of the main ones that I use that I've got here, but I've got some others that I have to go to once in a while. The key to me, a good book is with the macro photographs. That's it.
That's it? Okay.